U.S. warships are now positioned in the Middle East, and the possibility of a U.S. military strike on the Islamic Republic of Iran looms. Tehran is increasing its rhetoric, threatening to strike at the heart of Tel Aviv in response.
West Asia is on the edge, and the warnings from Iran could not be more blunt. Iran's Army Chief Amir Hatami has issued a direct warning to the U.S. and Israel, stating any attack on Iran would come at a heavy cost.
Military buildup of U.S. forces around Iran is constantly raising prospects of war, one that holds the potential to spiral violently across West Asia.
Iran has issued its most explicit threat yet, warning that any U.S. military strike will trigger immediate attacks on the heart of Tel Aviv, as Israeli defenses go on high alert for potential multi-front warfare. Iran will treat any American attack as the start of war, and Tehran will respond by striking the heart of Tel Aviv. A senior political advisor to Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has warned, any military action by the U.S. from any origin and at any level will be considered the start of war, and the response will be immediate, all out and unprecedented, targeting the heart of Tel Aviv and all those supporting the aggressor, Ali Shamkhani said on X. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi also warned that Tehran would respond forcefully to any attack, but did not rule out a new nuclear deal. Share this with everyone you know, because Ali Shamkhani, an advisor to Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, echoed the warning, dismissing talk of a limited strike as an illusion. Any U.S. military action at any level will be considered the beginning of a war and will be met with an immediate attack, Shamkhani said, adding that the response would target the aggressor, all its supporters, and the heart of Tel Aviv. Before we break down exactly what happened and why this matters so much, please make sure you subscribe to States Brief Network. We're giving you the real analysis nobody else will touch. Tehran threatened on Sunday to retaliate against Israel, as well as U.S. military bases, in the event of American strikes on Iran, issuing the warning as Israeli sources said their country was on high alert. Iran's clerical establishment is facing the biggest anti-government protests since 2022, and U.S. President Donald Trump has repeatedly threatened to intervene in recent days amid reports of a growing death toll from a crackdown on demonstrators. U.S. media reported that Trump had been presented with options for potential strikes, including on non-military sites in Tehran. Iranian Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bakr Kalibaf, speaking in Parliament on Sunday, warned against a miscalculation. But here's the first massive twist that changes everything. Any decision to go to war would rest with Iran's 86-year-old Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. 3 Israeli sources, who were present for security consultations over the weekend, said Israel was on a high alert footing for any U.S. intervention, but did not elaborate on what that meant. An Israeli government spokesperson declined to comment. The Israel Defense Forces did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Israel and Iran fought a 12-day air war in June last year, in which the U.S. joined Israel as it launched airstrikes targeting nuclear and military sites. In response, Iran fired missiles and drones at Israel, killing 32 people, and targeted U.S. forces at Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. Think about what this actually means for regional security. Iran's parliament speaker warned Sunday that the U.S. military and Israel would be legitimate targets if America strikes the Islamic Republic over the ongoing protests roiling the country, as threatened by President Donald Trump. Mohammad Bagher Kalibaf made the threat after nationwide protests, challenging Iran's theocracy, saw protesters flood the streets in the country's capital and its second-largest city into Sunday morning, crossing the 2-week mark as violence surrounding the demonstrations has killed at least 116 people, activists said. It remains unclear just how serious Iran is about launching a strike, particularly after seeing its air defenses destroyed during the 12-day war in June with Israel. Any decision to go to war would rest with Iran's 86-year-old Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. The U.S. military has said in the Mideast it is postured with forces that span the full range of combat capability to defend our forces, our partners and allies, and U.S. interests. Then came the second devastating revelation. 4 potential Iranian response scenarios to a U.S. attack have been outlined. These include 1. Missile and drone strikes against Israel and U.S. bases in the region, particularly Al Udeid, Qatar, Incirlik, Turkey, Sheikh Issa, Bahrain, and Al Dhafra, UAE. 2. Missile and drone attacks focused exclusively on Israel. 3. Closure of the Strait of Hormuz combined with large-scale attacks on U.S. forces in the region. and 4, a coordinated response by Iran and the so-called axis of resistance against Israel and U.S. assets. Notably, this final scenario includes discussion of a potential ground incursion into Israel, an idea that has re-emerged in recent months. Israel and the United States treat Tehran's threats with full seriousness, including its renewed warnings about closing the Strait of Hormuz. Building on the Supreme Defense Council's statement, the radical wing of the conservative camp called on the regime to launch a preemptive strike, arguing that the protests reflect an American-Israeli plot to overthrow the regime. But the third twist reveals the true danger facing Israel. An assessment of Iran's conduct during Tel-Aviv, the Iran-Israel-June war, provides insight into the current state of its capabilities. During the conflict, Iran employed missile and drone attacks. Of approximately 550 missiles launched, 69 penetrated Israeli air defenses, resulting in damage to strategic sites and the deaths of 34 Israelis. By contrast, Iran's drone campaign largely failed, with reported interception rates by Israel and the United States approaching 99%. Following the U.S. strike on Iranian nuclear facilities, Iran responded with a missile launch against an American base in Qatar in an operation that was primarily cognitive and deterrent in nature, having been coordinated in advance with the United States. The Israel Defense Forces said Monday that it remained on alert for possible surprise scenarios, as anti-government unrest in Iran has prompted the United States to threaten intervention over the killing of protesters. Tehran has threatened to retaliate against Israel and U.S. military bases if it comes under American attack. Human rights groups allege the death toll in the country has risen to 648, though it may be much higher amid an internet blackout enforced by the regime since Thursday, making it difficult to assess the reported bloodletting. Trump said Sunday that Iran's leadership reached out to the U.S. over the weekend, expressing interest in holding nuclear negotiations. The president said he may take up the offer, but indicated he may strike Iran first. Then intelligence uncovered the fourth game-changing development. Iran's newly formed Defense Council warned on Tuesday that the country could respond before an attack if it detected clear signs of a threat, a stance that implicitly raised the possibility of preemptive action amid rising tensions with the United States and Israel. In a statement carried by state media, the council said allegations and interventionist remarks directed at Iran could be treated as hostile acts if they went beyond rhetoric. It said Iran's security, independence, and territorial integrity constituted a red line that cannot be crossed, and warned that continued hostile behavior would prompt a response, with full responsibility for the consequences resting with those behind it. The statement said that, within the framework of legitimate defense, Iran did not consider itself restricted to responding only after an action had taken place, and would treat tangible signs of a threat as part of its security assessment. This represents a significant escalation in Iranian rhetoric, essentially Tehran claiming the right to launch first strikes based on threat perception alone. Think about what happens next. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu raised the possibility of renewed military strikes on Iran during a meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump on Monday, including what one U.S. official described as a potential round 2 in 2026, Axios reported. Citing a U.S. official and 2 other sources familiar with the discussion, Axios said Netanyahu argued that further action could be needed to prevent Iran from rebuilding its nuclear and missile capabilities after last June's 12-day conflict. Trump told reporters after the meeting that the United States would strike Iran again if it attempted to reconstitute its nuclear program, while saying he would prefer to reach a nuclear agreement with Tehran. But the fifth revelation is the most explosive yet. During that conflict, there were few Israeli casualties, but Iranian missiles did manage to breach Israel's much-vaunted Iron Dome defense system, causing alarm in Tel Aviv and Washington. On Thursday, the Iranian army announced it had added 1,000 new strategic drones to its forces, including one-way attack drones and combat, reconnaissance, and cyber-capable systems designed to strike fixed or mobile targets on land, in the air, and at sea. Proportionate to the threats facing us, the agenda of the Army includes maintaining and improving strategic advantages for fast combat and a decisive response to any aggression, Army Commander Amir Hamati said in a short statement. At the same time, however, Iran is pursuing diplomatic channels in a bid to de-escalate the situation. Then came the sixth and final devastating truth. In a Truth Social post, Trump warned that time is running out and reiterated recent statements that he had sent a massive armada toward the Islamic Republic in anticipation of a possible strike. A massive armada is heading to Iran, It is moving quickly with great power, enthusiasm, and purpose, Trump wrote, referring to naval forces, including the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln. He compared the deployment to forces previously sent toward Venezuela, saying the fleet is ready, willing, and able to rapidly fulfill its mission, with speed and violence if necessary. Trump added that he hopes Iran will come to the table and negotiate a fair and equitable deal that would prevent the acquisition of nuclear weapons. As I told Iran once before, make a deal. They didn't, and there was Operation Midnight Hammer, a major destruction of Iran. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said Iranian security forces have their finger on the trigger and are ready to respond to any aggression, in comments carried by state media. Trump's warning came hours after Araghchi denied that Tehran was currently negotiating with the United States. Araghchi said he has had no recent contact with U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. We have not asked for negotiations. Of course, there are countries trying to mediate, with whom we are in contact, Araghchi said. Negotiations cannot take place in an atmosphere of threats. The U.S. must understand this. Talks have rules, and they must be based on equality and mutual respect, he added. Israeli Chief of Staff Eyal Zamir raised the issue directly with Brad Cooper, head of U.S. Central Command, warning that recent missile movements could serve as a cover for a surprise operation against the Jewish state. The warning follows reports that Western intelligence agencies had identified unusual movements involving the Revolutionary Guard's Aerospace Force. The developments could be linked to military exercises, Western officials with knowledge of the matter said, but added that the scale and synchronization had drawn closer scrutiny. President Masoud Pezeshkian said earlier this week that Israel had enjoyed missile superiority during the fighting, comments that drew criticism from some lawmakers who accused him of undermining Iran's defensive capabilities. IDF Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir said the force will strike its enemies wherever required on near and distant fronts alike, in comments that appeared to allude to the possibility of further action against Iran. Zamir said Iran had built what he described as a ring of strangulation around Israel and warned that the military was prepared to act both close to home and farther afield. Iranian authorities have blamed the recent nationwide protests and related deaths on foreign-backed rioters, accusing the U.S. and Israel of inciting violence and unrest. More than 6,300 people have been killed in the demonstrations, the U.S.-based human rights activists' news agency said. Mr. Trump said he held back from ordering military action against Tehran after being told protest killings were easing and plans for large-scale executions had been halted. The U.S. and Iran had been engaged in negotiations aimed at reaching a nuclear deal, but talks were derailed in June last year when Israel launched strikes on Tehran. The U.S. attacked Iranian nuclear sites during the 12-day war. Since then, Tehran has been cautious about returning to the negotiating table. The American aim in the nuclear talks is to prevent Iran from developing a nuclear bomb. Tehran has long maintained it has no intention of doing that, but its stockpiling of enriched uranium at levels close to weapons grade have sent alarm bells ringing in foreign capitals. Fears of war initially eased when Mr. Trump held off from carrying out strikes in support of anti-regime protesters in Iran, but concerns have not gone away, with some Middle East flights being rerouted or suspended due to the high tension. Russia is ready to evacuate its staff from Iran's Bushehr nuclear power plant if necessary, the head of its state nuclear corporation said. The opposition was trying to keep up pressure until key government figures either flee or switch sides, while the authorities were trying to sow enough fear to clear the streets without giving the United States justification to intervene, the official said. Financial markets are monitoring the situation with extreme concern, as any Iranian strikes on Tel Aviv would trigger massive Israeli retaliation and potential wider regional war. Oil prices could spike dramatically if the Strait of Hormuz is closed. Defense contractors are analyzing Israeli air defense capabilities against saturated missile attacks. Pentagon officials are coordinating with Israeli counterparts on defensive preparations and potential joint strike packages targeting Iranian missile facilities. Intelligence agencies are tracking Iranian missile movements and Revolutionary Guard deployments for signs of imminent attack preparations. Satellite surveillance is monitoring activity at Iranian launch sites. Regional powers are caught between competing pressures. Saudi Arabia and the UAE have pledged not to allow U.S. strikes from their territories while also preparing their own defenses against potential Iranian retaliation. Turkey is attempting to mediate while protecting its strategic interests. Qatar is concerned about threats to Al Udeid Air Base, which hosts thousands of American troops. The European Union is divided on supporting potential U.S. military action, with some members pushing for continued diplomatic engagement, while others advocate for solidarity with American and Israeli positions. Russia has warned against strikes while quietly preparing to evacuate personnel from Iranian nuclear facilities. China has called for restraint while backing Iran diplomatically at the United Nations. Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Saar urged the European Union to designate Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps as a terrorist organization. Saar said he told visiting German Interior Minister Alexander Dobrindt that now is the time to designate Iran's Revolutionary Guards as a terrorist organization within the European Union. In his conversation with the CENTCOM chief, Zamir urged closer coordination between Israeli and U.S. forces on defensive preparations. The phone call was followed by Cooper's visit to Tel Aviv, where he met Zamir and top Israeli military officials to discuss the situation. In June, Israel carried out airstrikes and covert operations against Iranian military and nuclear sites, killing more than 1,000 people, including senior officials and nuclear scientists. Iran retaliated by launching hundreds of missiles and drones at Israel, killing at least 33 people, among them an off-duty soldier. The United States helped Israel intercept Iranian attacks and later joined the Israeli campaign, bombing 3 Iranian nuclear facilities. Israeli intelligence and the Mossad do not believe Iran's current pace of rebuilding missile capabilities creates an immediate need for military action in the next 2 to 3 months, but warned the issue could become more urgent later. Senator Lindsey Graham said the United States should strike Iran again if there is credible evidence that Tehran is rebuilding its nuclear enrichment program or expanding its ballistic missile capabilities. One thing is absolutely certain. As Iran threatens immediate strikes on the heart of Tel Aviv in response to any U.S. military action, while Israeli defenses go on high alert for surprise scenarios. As Ali Shamkhani warns that limited strikes are an illusion, and any American attack will trigger unprecedented retaliation targeting Israel and all U.S. supporters, as Trump's massive armada, including the USS Abraham Lincoln, closes in on Iranian waters while threatening attacks far worse than Operation Midnight Hammer unless Tehran makes a nuclear deal, as Iran's Defense Council claims the right to preemptive strikes based on threat perception while adding 1,000 new strategic drones to its arsenal, and as Western intelligence detects unusual Revolutionary Guard missile movements that could serve as cover for surprise attacks. The region stands on the razor's edge of a multi-front conflict that would see Iranian ballistic missiles attempting to saturate Israeli air defenses and strike Tel Aviv's population centers while potentially closing the Strait of Hormuz and coordinating attacks through Hezbollah, the Houthis, and Iraqi militias in a scenario that would reshape the entire Middle East and send global oil prices soaring to unprecedented levels within hours of the first shot being fired.